So what does it really mean to serve a community? For a lot of people, the first thing that comes to mind is a badge and a patrol car. But for Stephanie Harmon, well, the answer evolved into something completely different. A fleet of vans and a whole new definition of the mission. Let's get into her story. Stephanie Harmon's journey took her from the driver's seat of a police cruiser to a whole fleet of white vans. And this wasn't just a simple career change, it was a massive shift in her entire approach to service. She went from enforcement to empowerment, from managing a crisis after it happened to actively preventing it in the first place. But you gotta understand, this wasn't a departure from her mission. Not at all. It was a recalibration of how she served. The core value, just showing up for people who need help, that stayed exactly the same. And all that discipline, that reliability she perfected in law enforcement, that became the literal foundation of her new company. Okay, so what was the problem that Stephanie saw? What was this gap she knew she had to fill? She saw that a critical piece of her community's infrastructure was missing, and it was leaving the most vulnerable people totally stranded, cut off from the services they desperately needed. Just look at this number, 64%. That is staggering. According to a 2024 survey on threats to aging well in America, almost 2/3 of seniors say a lack of transportation is their single biggest barrier to getting health care. This isn't just some small inconvenience. We're talking about a major systemic failure. And for Stephanie, that 64% wasn't just a statistic on a page. No way. In her own North Carolina community, it had a face. It was the dialysis patient missing a life-saving treatment. It was the veteran who couldn't make it to their VA appointment, or the special needs student who was left behind, unable to get to a program that could change their life. These weren't abstract problems. They were daily emergencies she felt called to answer. So how in the world do you even begin to fix a problem that big? Well, Stephanie's answer was to build a solution using the exact same discipline and intentionality she mastered as a police officer. And that's how S&S Courier and Transportation was born. Her method was so simple but just incredibly powerful. First step, laser focus. She targeted the people who needed it most: seniors, veterans, and special needs students. Second, relentless execution. She applied law enforcement standards to her fleet. That meant spotless vans, professionally trained drivers, and routes that were planned out with meticulous precision. And the final piece? The delivery. It was a service built not just on getting people from point A to B, but on absolute consistency, reliability, and human dignity. Now, the official name for the sector she jumped into is Non-Emergency Medical Transportation, or NEMT. And you can really think of it as the unsung hero of the healthcare system. It's not about sirens and flashing lights. It's about making sure people can get to the routine care, the checkups, the therapy, the treatments that actually stops those big emergencies from ever happening. It is quite literally crisis prevention on wheels. Every founder gets to this point. In the early days, Stephanie did absolutely everything. She was the driver, the dispatcher, she did all the paperwork. But to make a truly lasting impact, she knew she had to evolve. She had to go from being a driver to being a leader. And this is the huge question she had to answer. When you've built a whole company on your own personal reliability, how do you scale that up? How do you grow the business without losing that core of trust and consistency that made it so special in the first place? Her solution was brilliant and totally strategic. She stepped out of the van so she could work on the business, not just in it. She wrote down every single process to make sure anyone on her team could deliver the exact same high level of service. And then she took it even further. She launched a consultancy to help other NMET owners build their own resilient, reliable businesses. She was amplifying her impact way beyond just her own fleet of vans. This quote from Stephanie herself, it's really the key to her entire philosophy. It's not about one big heroic act. It's about the disciplined process behind the service, setting achievable goals, being consistent, and just not giving up. These are the principles that have let her change the lives of her clients and inspire the entire passenger transportation community. So when you step back and look at Stephanie's whole journey, from the police badge to the driver's seat of a van to the boardroom, it becomes crystal clear. Her fundamental mission to serve and protect her community never actually changed. Think about it. A badge represents authority, and it's about managing a crisis. But the keys to her vans, they represent something just as powerful. They unlock access. They unlock independence. They unlock the essential appointments that make up a healthy, dignified life. Ultimately, what Stephanie's story really gives us is this profound redefinition of what it means to serve. It teaches us that it's not always about racing to an emergency with sirens blaring. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can possibly do for your community is just show up on time.